Right, okay, it's 2 o'clock, so I think we can make a start. Obviously, we'll let anybody in who wants to join us. But thank you, everybody, and welcome to Comtec's webinar this afternoon in partnership with our clients, Rubbermaid Commercial Products, also known as RCP. My name is Emily, and I am Head of Client Partnerships here at Comtec. And I'm joined by Martyn and Ben from RCP. Big welcome to you both. Thank you very much for joining our conversation this afternoon. Let's kick off with a few words from you both. Would you like to tell our listeners today all about Rubbermaid Commercial Products?
Yeah, of course. I'll take that one, Martyn, if that's all right. Rubbermaid Commercial Products are a global manufacturer of facilities management solutions. So we're kind of world famous for our recycling and refuse product range, but many other different categories as well. So we were formed in 1958, originally and still a US business. And the word Rubbermaid came from our very first patent that we ever had, which was rubber bath mats with suckers that we used to sell into the hotel environment. So rubber, construction composition was rubber, and we used to sell it to housekeeping maids. So therefore, Rubbermaid. Every time you go to a hotel and you step on a rubber bath mat and you don't slip over, you can thank Rubbermaid for that innovation.
A little bit of trivia for us, thank you.
exactly. Pub quiz. So we now sell obviously a much more diverse range of products in the portfolio that have developed over time. We're well known for product innovation in the facilities management solution space, and really dealing with professional cleaning companies, facilities management companies who obviously have a lot of cleaning challenges within their facility. And we, of course, our product range helps them to become more efficient, more productive, and act more sustainably as a result of it.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for that introduction. And can you both talk us through what your roles at RCP?
Go ahead, Martyn.
Okay, thanks, Ben. My name is Martyn Hodgkinson, as previously introduced. I work in the marketing function, so it's officially called brand commercialization, and that effectively means two areas really. Number one is our brand communications, so that's all of our web platforms, all of the omni-channel touch points that you can see the Rubbermaid Commercial Products brand. And the second element is working with our key distribution partners and end users. So working closely with Ben and his team, and working really with the distributors to bring the right content to our end users, who no doubt are on the call today, but also working, hand in hand with end users as well around how we best support end user facilities, how we bring the right products to the market at the right time, but also how we make sure that the products fit within the environment and how we can support the end users with the implementation of our products, our ranges, particularly at this moment in time within the waste management and recycling space.
Brilliant. Thanks, Martyn. How about you, Ben?
Thank you. So I head up the new business development function in the UK. So manage a team of business development managers, and we're super passionate about being in the marketplace, being at the ground level with the end user, helping them to understand how switching to a durable product solution will help them become more productive, more sustainable, and really help to drive those improvements for them. So we're super passionate about that. I've been in role I've worked for RCP for about 7 years in various different end user focused roles, and the reason I love my role is seeing the implementation of that change, and seeing how it improves people's lives every single day, from cleaners to people in an office environment to people in manufacturing plants and food service hospitality environments. So that's why I do what I do every day.
Brilliant. Thank you. And from previous conversations with you both, I know how important and how passionately you feel about the industry. So it's a real pleasure to have you both today to talk us through the changes that are happening in March next year when it comes to the recycling legislation. Before we get into that, I wondered if you could share a little bit more about the core values at RCP that really guide your team.
Yeah, I can cover that one off. For those who aren't aware of RCP, we are part of a larger organisation. So the company that a lot of people have never heard of, and that's Newell Brands. Within that organization, there are a whole host of household brands that you will most definitely have heard of. So the likes of Sharpie pens, Parker pens, Yankee Candle, Woodwick Candle, etc. So there are literally hundreds of brands across the world that we house within Newell. RCP is the commercial element of that, so the part that goes to business. So everything else is B2C, we're B2B. But a lot of the work that we do internally is done across the whole of Newell. So, RCP doesn't interact on its own outside of Newell. We work directly with HR partners and finance partners who look after other business units as well. And with that, with regards to the core values, we have an internal set of values which are very well positioned. They are passion for winning, integrity, leadership, ownership, and teamwork. So they are internal. We don't communicate those externally, but that's what guides us, and that's where Ben talks about being passionate. We have a passion for winning, and winning naturally means growing our sales, just like everybody else. But the true enjoyment of that comes from the ownership and the leadership and the teamwork with internal stakeholders. So Ben and I will work together regularly, as with the wider team, but also with external stakeholders as well. So working with our distribution partners and working with end users to genuinely try and make a difference. And to Ben's point, completely agree, make the day-to-day lives of the people that we work with, both the people who implement our solutions, but also the people that use our solutions, make their lives easier and happier and ideally more sustainable on a day-to-day basis.
Perfect. Well, I think that leads very nicely then into the main body of our conversation today. Before we get started, we have got a poll for everybody who's joined us today, which should appear on your screen in just a few seconds. This is where we all hold our breath and hope that the technology is working correctly. Hopefully you can all see the poll now. Anyone give us a thumbs up if you can see it? I can't see it on my screen. I can see it. All good. Brilliant. Martin, Ben, can you see the results of the poll?
No,
no, I can't see it either. Okay, brilliant. So it looks like 82% of the people who've joined us today have not heard of the recycling scheme. So perhaps before we get started, Martin, Ben, you could just walk us through, give us a brief introduction before we move on to the next question.
Listen to me talk a load of rubbish. I think the 82% of people who aren't currently aware of recycling legislation is very in line with some independent third-party research that we've done ourselves, actually, and so hence the reason why so important to get that message out there. So simpler recycling is essentially an effort by the UK government to improve recycling rates, which over the last decade have really stagnated, both in the domestic and the commercial environment. There's a lot of different challenges around recycling, and you probably won't find too many businesses in the UK now that aren't at least trying to recycle. Many of them, and certainly the ones that we go in and sort of consult with and speak to, generally aren't doing a great job. So they've acquired bins over time. They have a bit of a mismatched process, unclear signage. Nobody in the world knows what goes into dry mix recycling unless you're a kind of waste expert. So see Emily smiling there, and testament to my point. That material recyclability awareness is a massive and huge issue. So what the UK government have attempted to do is to implement some legislation which goes live in 100 working days from today, as of Thursday, the 7th of November. So I'll repeat that, 100 working days, which is absolutely no time whatsoever. And what it aims to do is to, number one, help us to, or push us and drive us to separate out those types of waste which are easily recyclable, which are useful and economically valuable in the circular economy. So these are the sort of things that go into recycled packaging that the packaging manufacturers use, that we buy from supermarkets every day, etc., etc. And the circular economy is hungry for that kind of resource. So what businesses need to do, who of course produce a huge amount of waste weight, is to separate out dry mixed recyclables from general waste. Of which many businesses are attempting to do that at the moment, but the 5 categories of recyclables that they need to recycle are glass, hard plastics, metal, which are sort of metal cans, etc., etc., paper, which of course not confidential waste, and then cardboard as well. So they're the 5 categories of recyclables that businesses need to separate as an absolute minimum. And then food waste is probably the biggest change to the way that businesses are going to be legislated and required to manage waste within their facilities as well. So to go over it again, food waste needs to be separated from general waste. Dry mixed recyclables in those 5 categories need to be separated from general waste also. And then obviously your general waste is a mix of non-recyclable materials in the end. But particularly taking the food waste out of general waste stream will massively reduce the amount of general waste. And if you don't know, general waste is disposed of normally in landfill. So obviously terrible in terms of like greenhouse gas emissions and CO2e, etc. However, there's an increasing infrastructure in the UK with the energy from waste type plants. So essentially they incinerate and burn waste and turn it into energy. So that is a form of recycling, but of course there's a lot of challenges around that, around carbon capture, carbon release, all that sort of stuff. So significantly better to recycle waste by putting it into a recyclable stream or a food waste stream than it is to burn recyclables or put it into landfill, which is essentially robbing the circular economy of recyclables and resource. So the waste industry and a hugely underappreciated issue is that individual facilities have the responsibility to drive value and resource in the circular economy. And that's just something that's not talked about, not utilized, not discussed in any sort of way, shape or form. So as I say, businesses in England, 100 working days. An important caveat that we have is that businesses with less than 10 employees, so 9 or less, so micro businesses, have a 2-year extension on the implementation of the legislation. So that means they've got a further 2 years in order to be able to do it. But there is cost saving and environmental benefits off the back of doing it. So we would highly recommend to get ahead of the legislation and not leave it until the last minute.
Perfect. And there's been
Ben, if I can just add as well, just around, there may be some people in the audience who are from Wales or who have business in Wales. The legislation for Wales on recycling went live earlier this year. They went at it a slightly different route. So they basically said that you're not allowed to have a dry mixed recyclables stream. You have to separate everything that has a significant weight of waste that you generate. So for example, those 5 areas that Ben just mentioned, you would have to create a stream specific to those if you create waste of those items. So just a heads up that is live in Wales. That's happening. I'm sure Ben will share some further insights later on, but that is in place now. We've seen businesses with kind of 7, 8 waste streams in different parts of their business. So just as a shout out and a little tip potentially for future, this could, and we're not legal experts by any stretch of the imagination, and we're not prophesizing around what's to come in the future, but very much the government and obviously the whole industry is looking at how they can become more sustainable, and the more we can, well, firstly minimize the amount of waste that we generate is obviously the best way of going about it, But if you are going to throw waste in the bin, which is inevitable, the more we can separate it out and the more we can minimize general waste, the better.
Thanks, Martyn.
Absolutely.
That was going to be
just to mention,
follow-up.
to build on Martyn's point there. Sorry, Emily.
Okay.
Good conversation. Is Wales are the second best recycling nation in the world. And there's a very good reason for that. And it's because they separate waste into so many different streams. So both in households and businesses, as Martyn had said, was introduced on the 6th of April this year in the workplace environment. And Wales and the Welsh government are very, very proud of their second place globally. So like Martyn said, we're not certainly not prophesizing about what the future will look like, but there is definitely more change coming over the next 5 years within the waste industry, how it's managed, how it's regulated, and that kind of thing. And we think that potentially there might be further streams added or further separation required in the future. So of course, it's very important to maintain that that focus and that, I suppose, flexibility on the way that you manage waste in your facilities. So yeah, and I think just to talk about one of the caveats that Wales had is that food waste, if a facility produced less than 5 kilograms per week of food waste, they were allowed to manage it within the general waste stream. Anything above 5 kilos, they have to have a food waste bin. However, for facilities in England, it's currently non-negotiable. So if you produce like 1 tea bag a week, you have to have a food waste facility. You have to do that. So for small facilities, that potentially, or those facilities that maybe have limited space, which is a common, frequently asked question that we get in these sort of interactions, is if you've got very, very limited space, hey, you still need a food waste separation or food waste provision to be able to get rid of that at curbside. So you need to find some space, unfortunately.
Great, thank you both. Thinking about then the way that the legislation is looking at the moment in terms of what will definitely come into effect in March, what impact do you think that this is going to have on businesses?
I think in terms of the investment of resource, people need to put time that they probably don't have, budget that they may or may not have into investing in this in the initial instance. I think definitely it can be seen as a cost implementation of new waste bins across your facility. Generally, when you have to have new bins back of house and things like that, they'll come as part of your waste contract, which is completely separate to what we're talking about today as an internal container manufacturer. Generally, it'll be something that you'll tend to lease over a period of time in terms of your back of house bins. But I think there'll be a huge influence, a huge amount of pressure and focus on businesses to become more sustainable, to talk about recycling more, to report and all that kind of thing. And of course, there's going to be fines for non-compliance to this legislation. So DEFRA, Department of Environmental, Food, Rural Affairs, are the ones who wrote the legislation, but the Environment Agency are the organisation who are tasked with enforcement of it. So if anyone knows anything about the Environment Agency, they're pretty brutal. They'll come out, they'll come to site with the with their badges and say, hey, we need a site tour like now. So it could come at any time, and that's of course the risk. Yeah, definitely need to invest some time in being prepared. But of course, I think it provides a really key moment in time for businesses. So it means that, okay, there's a deadline now. Waste recycling is normally the very bottom of the agenda. And the very bottom of the agenda when it comes to allocation of time, of resource, of budget, et cetera, and something completely underappreciated. So I think it's a real key moment in time for facilities managers, for anyone up to sort of CEO level when it comes to managing environmental sustainability, to really put a little bit of focus and spotlight onto how facilities manage waste within their facilities. So it's, again, a real key moment in time, I think, to make some really positive changes that are going to improve environmental sustainability and then also potentially reduce costs as well through lower general waste charges with your waste contractor.
And what role would you say RCP has to play in supporting businesses with the change?
Of course. So we have a very durable, modular solution when it comes to internal waste bins. So if you go to rubbermaid.eu, there's further information on the types of bins that we produce. So one of our best-selling ranges is the Slim Jim Recycling Station, which is a bank of bins that are color-coded, labeled very, very clearly. And there's various different waste stream labels that you can choose in order to suit the needs of your facility. So it's a very flexible solution and they're very good in sort of office environments, warehouse logistics environments, front of house within sort of hotels, etc., and back of house as well. We have different product solutions for different areas within facilities. So food waste is obviously a huge focus of the legislation. So we have an industry-leading and very well-renowned range of pedal bins or step-on bins, which are perfect for use in food preparation environments in order to reduce the amount of time that people are touching the bins, etc., contamination with food and all that sort of stuff. So that's how we can support. But I think also as a business, we don't just want to be a manufacturer of products. We want to be thought leaders in the space. And so we invest a lot of time and a lot of resource, and I know definitely Martyn and his team invest a lot in making sure that we have the most up-to-date information, some great case studies and benchmarking from successes that we've had in the marketplace, and of course we want to try and share that information far and wide in terms of how businesses have been able to improve environmental sustainability, save costs, as almost like an inspiration story to show people that it can be done and how it can be done, essentially. So we invest in training courses. So there's an online training course which businesses can go onto, and it offers free recycling training for all staff, so for RCP customers. So lots of hints and tips on rubbermaid.eu, and another website that we also run as well, lovesustainability.com. So if you go on there, there's some great hints and tips on there about what you can do to navigate the impending legislation.
And Ben, again, just to add on to that, we have lots of tools and things, and they are all free of charge for people to utilize. And the reason we do that is because putting bins in place is not going to generate a culture of recycling and sustainability on its own. So we, wherever possible, want to make sure that whenever you use our bins, obviously the bins should talk for themselves. Color coding, messaging, labeling, customization, etc. So really, making it really, really clear is really important. But then how you then build that culture of recycling is really important for you as a business. So, RCP gets no kind of revenue off the back of providing these tools, but fundamentally we are here to improve recycling and improve environmental sustainability within the organization. So anything we can do to help that journey a smoother journey is better. So that's where the Love to Learn platform comes in. We have reminder posters and things like that are all available to download free of charge. So that's what that element of RCP support is all about.
Brilliant.
I think as well, Martyn. Sorry, Emily. The bespoke labeling element of things, which Martyn touched on there, is really important as well. So back to one of my earlier points. One of the biggest challenges is the fact that no one knows what goes into dry mix recycling, and it's different by region, different by facility, different by waste contractor sometimes. So I think in order to ensure that facilities are collecting the right kind of materials that can be recycled by their waste contractor is also important to highlight. So Martyn touched on the bespoke labeling element of things, which is something that we have the capability to do. Businesses potentially to put their logos on there, to have more flexibility on the wording. I know particularly with the implementation in Wales, we were doing a significant amount of labels with dual language on there, bilingual, so in Welsh and then English. And of course, we do it in other countries as well. So, in different languages. So, just gives that flexibility for people to choose what matches their facility, and just makes it a little bit more tailored, a bit more bespoke as well.
Fantastic. One of the things that we mentioned or we discussed in a previous conversation was a waste walk. Would you mind sharing with our audience what does that mean? How does it work?
Sounds a lot more exciting than it sounds. Yeah. So a waste walk essentially is an audit, although we had to change the name. So people unfortunately don't like the word audit, so we had to we had to change it. So I think the best way of explaining it is it's a walk around the facility. And we look at best practice. We look at various different things within the facility, but how to manage waste communicated? What do the bins look like within the facility? What waste is going into the bins? And I think importantly as well, looking at back of house and how they're managed, or what waste goes into the bins back of house is also a key consideration as well, because they can think that they're doing a great job of recycling, but then we go and look at their dry mix recycling bin and there's evidence of cross contamination. We look in their general waste bin and it has lots of recyclables in there. So there's a clear mismatch between the two. So Rubbermaid have a range of self-help tools. So if you go to rubbermaid.eu and the sustainability section around legislation, we have a lot of self-help tools that you can download and actually perform a waste walk yourself. We also offer a free consultative solution as well, so no obligation, free of charge, where we can help to actually come to your site and do a site survey and perform a waste walk, and then off the back of it produce a report. And then obviously the way that we want to try and commercialize this is, of course, by specifying a bin solution by Rubbermaid. But of course, that level of consultation is no obligation as well. So I've got a lot of pictures of bins in my phone, and so the guys in my team. So it's super interesting. But I think we have a lot of best practice with. It's a very, very easy solution to specify. It's just something that's so underappreciated and is normally the last thing people think of. So we can provide a very easy solution to fix that.
I think it's fair to say, Ben, as well, with the when you go on the waste walk, and it's not just us who can do this. Anybody can go and walk around the facility and look at the bins, but it becomes quite evident quite quickly where businesses are performing well and not well. And a lot of businesses that we talk to think that they are recycling quite well, but then because they've just implemented the bins, they've implemented the solution, they are there, they don't ever see them again, because they're in a kitchen or they're back of house somewhere, they're in an office, they're in a gym, until you actually physically go and look inside the bins and see what is being done. You don't actually know what's going to the back of house, which then has a knock-on effect to your waste collector. And if your waste collector sees cross-contamination, or that you're using the wrong bin bags in the wrong bin, etc., your waste will immediately go to general waste, which obviously isn't where you want it to go. And also, back to the culture piece, the most important thing here with the culture is that we have to make sure that if you're asking your staff to do something different and behave in a certain way, that is then being followed through afterwards. So communicating those results afterwards and showing that you're doing the right things and that your waste collector is improving recycling because of the work that they're doing when they're throwing their waste away, which seems like a really insignificant thing, throwing something in the bin. It has a real big knock-on effect at the back. So doing these waste walks really gets us to talk to the people that genuinely matter within the organisation when it comes to the types of waste that you're throwing away.
And like you said, Martyn, a few sort of at the start of our conversation, it is a real opportunity, isn't it? This change in legislation, it's a chance for everybody to kind of reevaluate how we've been doing things up until now. And just because we have to make a change doesn't mean that it's also not a really good time to want to make a change as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to say that it's an opportunity. Of course we are, because we want to share best practice and sell bins to people. But there is definitely an opportunity for every organisation. We are yet to come across an organisation that we can't help when it comes to improving recycling. There are some really, really good examples out there, but we believe that most businesses can improve. But yeah, it depends what your drivers are, what role you have within the business. But if you're in sustainability, then of course you're interested in reducing the amount of waste and improving your recycling output. So one of the things, we've worked with a hotel recently, and through the work that we've done, they've actually removed around 30% of their general waste bins. So in certain areas, they literally don't have any general waste because they believe that they don't need any general waste bins because everything that they have is recyclable. So from a sustainability perspective, there's that angle. But then if you're more cost driven, or you're in procurement or something like that, the more you separate your waste, and we could genuinely be here for another hour talking about the external waste collection costs and things, and the nuances between it. But fundamentally, you increase your recycling, you will reduce costs, and that is going to be a positive impact for everybody at a very difficult kind of economical time.
What do you think the long-term goals of RCP are beyond 2025?
Well, I can take this from an internal and a marketing perspective. Maybe Ben's got a view from a sales perspective as well. But we're about to launch a new tagline, strapline, which people will probably raise their eyebrows at when I say that. But this genuinely ties, hopefully, from what we've said today, hopefully ties it all together nicely. So we'll be launching that in the new year, which is made for work that matters. Because we don't just do bins, we do lots of other things as well. But obviously, the purpose of this call is to talk about recycling, and that is, that's what we're here to do. And hopefully, you can see from the passion that Ben and I have for bringing the right solutions to the right businesses that is a strapline that isn't just something that we write on marketing collateral. It's something that we actually believe in. So that's our purpose. That's what we stand for, and that's what we will be formally launching in the new year. But realistically, from a long-term perspective, and I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't the word that everybody uses when they answer this question, but sustainability is 100% the thing that is going to change over the course of the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years for RCP. We've hired a lady who is extremely talented and extremely knowledgeable when it comes to sustainability. She works specifically for the commercial business unit. She works closely with the Newell business as well, because as you can imagine, there's a hell of a lot of complexity when it comes to gathering data, because a lot of our facilities are shared facilities. So when we look for data around what our environmental impact is, it's quite difficult, because obviously within a warehouse, within a manufacturing plant, there are also other brands that are being manufactured or housed. But effectively, she is in the process of doing a hell of a lot of data diving and understanding where we are today, so that in the next, she's basically building out a short, medium, and long-term plan. So a 0 to 2 years, a 3 to 5, and a 5+ years. What do those ambitious goals look like? And that will inform everything from our processes through to our product solutions that we offer, through to the communications that we have. So that is definitely where we are heading moving forward. So Ben, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add from an outbound perspective.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think environmental sustainability isn't just a buzzword anymore. It's something that we're living and breathing every day, particularly in the cleaning industry, which is very carbon intensive as an industry. There's a lot of chemical usage, a lot of single-use plastic usage. Obviously, there's people who are wasting things every single day. So really, our sort of long-term view, of course, is to grow our business. But the way that we're going to do that is by sharpening our approach, the way we communicate and the way we articulate to customers how RCP can help them to reduce their CO2 impact as a business. And that's through making smarter choices about the products that they use. So buying more high quality, durable solutions that are built to stand the test of time, rather than maybe low cost and poor quality solutions, which actually, when you look at it over a short period of time, or even 2-year, 3-year, 5-year period, cost more money. So it's really just about helping to articulate that value that we can bring to the table, not just in product solutions, but also how we can help in reporting and things like that as well. So I think that's kind of our long-term view of how we plan to grow.
Fantastic. And one last question before we go to Q&A. For businesses who are interested in staying ahead of the curve when it comes to sustainability, what would your top 3 tips be for them?
Martyn, I'm going to steal something actually from a seminar that we went to a couple of weeks ago, which was a sustainability seminar for the UK hospitality industry. So it was a really, really great event. Some serious players in that space, all sharing ideas in the room. So I think the top 3 tips that were shared from there were collaboration. So collaborating not just with your suppliers, but also industry peers. So even if they're maybe competitors or something like that in the space, we all live on the same planet. We're all on the same journey. We're all trying to do our best to reduce our carbon output and our impact on the environment. So talking collaboration with both suppliers, peers, competitors, etc. Looking inwardly as well, and getting feedback and collaboration from people in the team. I think particularly if you were to take an example of like a hotel or a food service environment, people in the kitchen. So the chef, the person who moves waste from A to B, the porter, whoever else it is, they might have the best ideas in the whole building. So let's talk to the people. Let's get ideas. Let's get insight about how we can do it, and use that information to be able to drive decision making. I think point 2 is data. Which is to analyze data. I think first of all you need to understand like what your starting point is, and this goes for anything, but particularly when it comes to recycling and recycling legislation, etc. Understand what your recycling rate is, which is the measurement of the percentage of weight that you recycle versus the percentage of weight that you send to general waste or landfill, incineration, etc. So if you have a starting point, hey, our recycling rate is 20%. We have a goal to double that in the next 12 months or something like that. Then I think that's really important. And then I think the last point would be storytelling. So how you share that story it is really important. How you articulate, how you communicate it. Of course, stakeholders, both internally, externally, your patrons, they want to know what you as a business are doing, because of course your consumers vote with their feet. So if you're not seem to be doing something environmentally sustainable, then they've got plenty of other choice out there. So just to reiterate, collaboration, data, storytelling. So I think that's really the top tips for today.
Anything from you, Martyn, to add to that before I move on to Q&A?
No, I'm in the storytelling business, so I'm more than happy to hear that from Ben.
Fantastic. At this point then I'll open it up to our audience. Has anybody got any questions for Martyn and Ben, either on how RTP works generally, or on how we can all be working together as this legislation comes into effect in March next year? If you do have any questions, just pop them in the chat. Make sure that it's showing for everybody just so that we can see. One that has come through to me is what do you say are the biggest obstacles when it comes to establishing that recycling culture that you talked about earlier in the session?
I think there's sometimes a reluctance to sort of engage in that culture, recycling, etc. You could have the best infrastructure in the world and separate waste and spend a lot of time and effort in separating waste in your facility. But then potentially if the cleaners are putting it in the same bin back of house, or the bin lorry that comes to collect it is just taking it all and putting it into the same bin, sometimes that feels like wasted effort, and then that sort of dilutes the effort that people are willing to put into that kind of thing. But I think as well, like poor communication amongst facilities. So people who are in charge of sort of mandating processes or sustainability practices and things like that. If the impact of what they're talking about is not isn't sort of long term and impactful, it sort of is a little bit diluted as well. So I think that really our top tip, and especially when it comes to businesses, maybe larger businesses that have processes in place and SOPs and things like that, is to talk about sustainability and sustainability practice like recycling the same way that they talk about health and safety. Because of course, health and safety is a legal obligation. It's to keep people safe. It's to improve outputs, etc. But sustainability is exactly the same as that. Keeping people safe, looking after the planet. Yeah, exactly that. So they might spend 30 seconds talking about why this new recycling bins are in situ, and that'll be it. But they should continue to talk about it. Continue to talk about, hey, we've done an audit this week, and these are the results off the back of it. And this is what we've seen, and this is what we need to change, and this is what we need to challenge, and just kind of continue that conversation. But I think as well, if you link your sort of results to communications that you do internally, whether that's like the operational team or communicating it outwardly, hey, we've gone back to the business that Martyn's in, which is the storytelling piece. Hey guys, great job. Last 3 months, we've improved our recycling rates by 5%. We've improved our recycling rates by 10%. Let's go for 15, like over the next 3 months. And if you're really bold and brazen about it, if your operational staff are paid bonuses or anything like that, linking potentially those bonuses to those improvements to a particular goal, i.e., recycling rates, etc. So if you really want a motivational tool, finance is a great way of doing it.
We've had some more questions put through in the chat. So first one is, do you imagine that these changes will impact or affect one industry more than another?
I'll take this one, Ben, if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think it's very difficult to say with that one, because obviously it really depends on where the businesses within the industry are when it comes to recycling today. So for some people, moving to general waste and mixed recycling will be a major shift because they currently only have general waste outside the back door, which therefore means that they will then need to work with their waste collector to put a mixed recycling bin out the back as well. So that will be a whole process change. But I think the one area that kind of stands out more than any is that kind of hospitality, food service type environment, because the food waste piece is going to be the biggest element of this. Like Ben said before, most businesses are trying to do something around recycling already. Definitely improvements to be made, but the food waste part is explicitly separating food waste from general waste is going to be very important, and the process as to how that happens. And it's a complex environment as well. You think about a hotel and the different types of environments within the hotel that generates waste, from the hotel room through to the kitchen and the bar and the restaurant, through to a gym, through to the offices. The staff will have their own personal waste from their working day by working in there. The guests will come in and sometimes they will just use the gym, sometimes they will have a night, a week stay. Where does their waste go? What do they do with it? How do you make sure that multiple stakeholders are involved and engaged when it comes to the right recycling or the right throwing the right waste in the right bins? So that one definitely stands out. And then another area where we've seen a lot of change and a definite focus on sustainability is in the kind of industrial type sector, particularly warehouse and logistics. Very, very good when it comes to recycling and waste management on the what you would class as the shop floor. So imagine the large warehouse space, but the area that often gets forgotten, and a little tip for people who are in that kind of space, is the personal waste area. So where staff, if you've got a large warehouse space, you could have 50, 100, 500 staff working at any given time, especially at this time of year at peak season. They will bring in their own food. They will bring in things where they probably need to throw packaging away, etc. So don't forget about the personal waste in the staff areas as well as the main shop floor area. But every industry is going to be a challenge, and that's why we're trying to communicate as much as we possibly can and help our direct customers and help our distribution partners as well, who can then disseminate the message out further.
Perfect. And last question in the chat is, if you are tenants, so if you're renting an office in a building, is the responsibility around recycling with the company who's renting or with the landlords for arranging waste management?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question, and something that confused the life out of a lot of people. I think the ultimately the letter of the law around legislation is around how you present waste to the waste contractor at curbside. So that's
Right.
that's a really, really important differentiation about the letter of the law, if you want to call it that. So how the waste is presented to the waste contractor is the first thing that the Environment Agency will audit. So if they if they're looking at your bins and you've got of course like cross contamination or general waste in your recyclable bins, etc., that will be the thing that you'll be penalised for. So when it comes to a mixed facility where you've got several different businesses, etc., it would be the responsibility of the whoever owns the waste contract in order to be able to ensure that. But of course, that pressure will come from your landlord to you as a business. So in order to effectively manage the waste process, of course, there's no magic leprechaun or member of staff generally who is separating waste back of house and putting it into various different bins. So as a business, you need to ensure that you're separating waste internally within the facility as well as externally in order to be able to ensure that the waste is correctly transferred. So of course, waste movement is a huge part of that as well. So how waste is collected by either your in-house staff or your cleaning contractor from the point of collection in your maybe office or kitchen or wherever else it is, and how it's moved from internally in the facility to back of house in those bins, because of course there's a risk of cross contamination during that process as well. So again, Rubbermaid EU, we do a range of material handling waste collection solutions as well, which offer the opportunity for people to move things from A to B. But I would say that in the initial instance, it would be the landlord who would be the person who has that responsibility. But of course, I think it's about collaboration and talking to your landlord about what their plans are, how they're planning to navigate the simpler recycling legislation. And I think it is a collaborative conversation there, whereby you need to work it out between you and your landlord.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that's really helpful, especially for, like I said, a lot of companies that are in that shared environment. It's all about working together, isn't it? So
Absolutely.
fantastic. Thank you very much. I think that was it in terms of questions in the chat. So I'll take this opportunity to thank you both again. Thanks, Martyn. Thanks, Ben, for joining us today. I'm sure that everybody in our audience found that extremely useful and kind of just dissecting the myth a little bit around recycling and talking us through what can often look like quite a complicated issue. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. And a big thank you to everybody else who has joined us in our audience. I hope you found it useful, and a recording will be shared in the next few weeks or so. So thank you very much, and have a lovely rest of the day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.